Hey everyone, this is Drew Chesney, the Twiniverse Council Commissioner, and last night we held our Leaders Forum on COVID unit programming. However, one little hiccup occurred, and I did not record the first 10 minutes of the presentation or so. So, my bad. So what I've done is I'm going to do those slides right now, and then I'm going to butt them up to the other recording from last night, and that way you have the full presentation. So you're going to see an awkward transition at some point. You're going to get into a gentleman named Rob Patterson, who will kind of just seamlessly be in the middle of a sentence. You're going to miss probably about 30 seconds or so of his beginning presentation. So my apologies on that. And here we go. Last night we had 3 individuals with us who have been working very hard on COVID programming for their units. Rob Patterson from PAC 1232 and Troops 1075. That's troops as in both boy and girl troops. Janine Booby from Troop 3357. Ryan Fava from PAC 4044. Also myself was there with Stephen Dunn, the Assistant Scout Executive. On that particular side, you also see my email address. You're more than welcome to reach out to me at any time. Even if you don't think I'm the right person, you just don't know who to reach out to with a question or concern, send it to me, and I'd be more than happy to move it on to the most appropriate individual. You're more than welcome to use that email address at any time. Our objectives for the evening were to go over a summary of the council resources, which is I'm going to do with you right now. Then we spent some time with leader perspectives with the 3 individuals. And then we did a quick Q&A session. There wasn't many questions. We did answer some throughout the presentation. And I hope if you do have any questions, you're willing to reach out to us and ask any questions that you may have. One of the things I went over real quick is the initial steps for when a unit feels that they are ready to start conducting unit activities, whether that be meetings, hikes, going to go camping or whatnot. The unit key 3 should determine those activities. They should sit down, over some coffee or something, and figure out what is appropriate for their unit. What kind of meetings, hybrid, virtual, in person, do they have the location, what's permitted for the county they live in. Twiniverse Council is not in a position to provide a blanket statement to all of our units. We stretch across 13 counties in New York State, and they range from cities to very rural areas. So the jurisdictions and the conditions that many of our units will find themselves in are just not conducive to us saying, hey, this is what you all should do. So what we suggest is that you get set up with your local authorities, you know what's going on in your county, and then you take that information and you move forward with it. Of course, if you need help being connected to those resources, you are more than welcome to reach out to us and ask any questions you want. We'll try and connect you to the right information, what you can and can't do in your county. Your DE and unit commissioner would be great resources for that. The key 3, after once coming to consensus, should work with the adult committee to determine if the unit is prepared to do all these things that the key 3 want to do. So once you figure out that initial list, go to the committee, have a full meeting, and see what type of reactions you get, what kind of questions, what kind of concerns, and ultimately support for those activities and meetings. If you get a consensus, which most of our units have, it's really important for you to tie in your chartered partner. Make sure that they understand what's going on, what precautions you're taking, what activities you want to do, why you want to do them, why they're important, and secure the support of your chartered partner. They have to be involved in all steps. Remember, they are the owners of the unit. They are actively engaged in many of these administrative decisions. They are affected by them. So they should absolutely be involved in that discussion once you have a tentative plan that your committee can support. Now it's up to you as the unit key 3 or committee members to understand and abide by all restrictions and safety precautions for the particular county that you're in and for the state. Things change, as we have all seen in our lives over the last few months, and you're going to have to make sure that you are up to date and staying informed of what you can and cannot do. All right. Understand what the precautions are and make sure that your unit is moving forward in a safe direction. At some point, unfortunately, if things were to take a twist, we may need to scale things back. But at this point, we're very encouraging people to go out and scout and move things forward for our kids. So we'll just make sure that you stay up to date on that stuff. These are checklists that you'll find on our website. We put them out a couple months ago when National provided them. These are checklists that you should absolutely be utilizing for each meeting and each activity that your unit is planning on doing. It'll help you kind of just gather your thoughts. It'll help you get your bearings straight. And you were able to print these off of the front page. I would print off a few copies of them so you have them, and so maybe another leader can go down with them as well. It's just a restart of scouting checklist. It gives you an idea of some precautions, what to look for before you gathered, as you gathered, and afterwards as well. On that particular page, you'll also find some information about council restarting that I'm going to go over quickly in a second here. But those checklists are massively important. Feel free to print off as many as possible and utilize them. I think each unit should have them and save them for a little short period of time, so that way if a question arises from a parent or your chartered partner, you can show the steps that you went through in order to ensure the safety of everybody involved in that particular activity. Property use, we have opened our 2 properties in the southern area, Waukponomy and Rotary at this point. Finally able to get Waukponomy opened. Working with the health department on that. So we have 6 campsites, both of a mix of lean-tos and tents for either camp. So 12 total between the 2. They are available through rental through the websites itself. From now until the end of the year, we're going to take this step by step. You can also use the properties for day use, hiking, fishing, anything else that you feel is appropriate. We're looking at campsite limits for around 25 people and day use limits for around 10. We're trying to keep down the number of people in the camp at any given time. Units that have larger populations and are interested in doing something should reach out to the council office directly, and they'll put you in touch with the right people to have a conversation about what we can do to help you have a successful and safe event. We've already worked with 1 unit in the Round Lake area to try and put together a fishing day for them. They have about 75 to 80 people total, but we're staggering the dens coming in. They're doing a good job in putting together some safety precautions, making sure that everybody's not in the same place, making sure that everybody's there at the same time so that they can have a good fun day for their units while their Webelos are camping overnight. So there are ways to make this work. We just ask that you have a conversation with us, and we're not opening that up to just free-for-all registration at this point. We really want to make sure that we do this right and that everybody follows the proper guidelines, utilizes the checklists available to them that I showed you in the previous slide. And if everyone does this right, then everyone's safe and everyone can utilize the properties moving forward. We're not jeopardizing the usage of those properties. I mentioned to you before our website. You can see the link on the front page of our website to programming and during COVID. It's on the right-hand side, just under the main header. This will bring you to this particular page here. I have to adjust. This was taken before I took off the forum registration, but you're able to kind of go through this page real quick. You'll see all the forms I've talked about. You'll be able to see the attestation sample that we provided on a document. We're also going to be updating it with some of the materials that we shared last night, some of the PowerPoint presentations, some of the documents that Rob and Ryan shared. I'll be doing that later today. But you feel free to take a look at this. It'll give you links to the scout shop information, links to the resident, to the facility rental information. So it's a good little one-stop shopping for this. And then the next step for us is to reinvigorate the Scout On page that we used in the springtime. so that it reflects most current information and is a current resource for units looking to plan events going forward. So the next step was the 3 discussions. So at this point, we're going to transition over to the next video so that you can see that happening. Thanks, guys. Enjoy.
A lot of our scouts took the Merit Badge Academy, and one thing we had to do in the troop versus the pack, we had to switch to virtual Scoutmaster conferences and boards of review. The next steps were very similar for 75 as it was for 232. So next slide. So where do we move? How do we move forward? The first thing we did in Pack 232 was really how can we spread out when we hit phase 4. We have a park, town park in Bethlehem that's right along the Hudson River. So we did a family fishing day where families could literally just come down, spread out along the shoreline and just fish, and everybody's fishing around the same time, but it was just a family by family out event. We've done a 2-liter soda bottle rocket launch since. We've done 3 camping trips at Rotary. I got emailed by the Mountain Ridge Adventure Course outside of Schenectady. So we had a bunch of scouts families go up there, do a ropes course. The big thing is we switched to Scoutbook. So where are we going in the fall? Our outdoor den meetings, we focus on the outdoor themed adventures. All the den leaders are trying to keep all the indoor type adventures towards the winter in case we have to go Zoom back to online. Our September pack meeting is going to be outdoors at a campground. We're going to be capped at 50 people. It's amazing race theme, so to kind of keep people spread apart. We're planning a family hike in the fall. In our pack meeting in October, we're going to be going to a farm/apple orchard. Again, a lot of room to spread out and families to have fun. The 75 B&G was more complex. They had troop meetings earlier. A lot of it was done in the beginning with cohorts. Everything was done. Patrols never intermixed. They were well spread out across a massive park. At one point, there was a rotation amongst stations at a subsequent meeting. They've done food drives during this time. They volunteered at the Patroon Land Farm. They've gone mountain and road biking. They had 2 crews that go on treks. We did go camping this summer at Rotary. One of the 75B's ASPLs designed a Trail to First Class program for a lot of the younger scouts, and we fully switched to Scoutbook as well. Again, they're planning to do outdoor troop meetings in the fall with a Court of Honor and doing camping in the fall. So the next question is posed. Next slide. Back one. So what are the discussions that took place within the unit leadership? I think B&G was a little bit more advanced than 232, just given that they're more active and there's older scouts and whatnot. The key for both was the COVID policy. What we're going to do, we used the checklist that Drew showed. We're lucky that we have EMS and doctors in the units. We've relied upon them and their guidance. We went to attestations. We formed our own attestation. We found out that the paper was building quickly. So 75 has already switched over to a Google form. 232 is going that way. And we think that might be easier for contact tracing rather than trying to find papers from a certain activity or outing. Both units quickly bought supplies. We bought disposable face masks. We're in the business of scouting. We're not going to argue about masks. If they're not bringing one, we're going to give them one. We got hand sanitizer, contactless thermometers, vinyl gloves, wipes. What's key this year is group size. We're capped at the 50. Registration to events. We've told people if you don't register and we hit cap, you can't go. We're also thinking that we're going to have to do multiple pack meetings if we have interest more than 50, and just do 2 rounds, either different days or different time slots. And then in terms of the Cub Scouts, in terms of food preparation, way we handle it was 2 camping trips. The families cooked on their own. They brought their own food. They cooked in their own spot, really trying to drive social distancing. A couple questions I got on the troop side was, how did we do it? How did you do camping in terms of tenting? We were planning to buy new tents this past year. we quickly switched from a 4-person tent to backpacking tents. We bought about 10 of them. And at the unit we got the EMS Refugio too. We waited for a sale and we hit it. And we've limited in our policy that no unrelated members can sleep together. So everybody has their own backpacking tent. But if we had twins or whatnot, they're allowed to sleep in the same tent. Food preparation is all adult supervised. There was no buffet. That was eliminated immediately. A lot of it was done individual preparation. So foil packs, breakfast in a bag, doing eggs in a Ziploc bag, those cereal prepackaged bowls, and like those Horizon milk cartons. A lot of fruit. We're surprised that the scouts are actually eating healthier now versus the stuff that they chose, which was great. Then the bills went up, but we rolled with it. That we thought that was motivated. We should go with that. We got rid of mess kits. We said, do not bring in mess kits. We did not want to do washing. So we went to disposables on utensils and plates and bowls and cups and stuff like that. And we limited transportation that we stayed local. So we stayed at Rotary, that the family had to bring the scout to the camp and they had to bring them home. So that was how again, the social distancing is the theme here. Parents cannot share tents with scouts. No, I mean, family camping, I think families can tent together. Drew and Steve, if you want to correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, we'll get to that. It's in the chat. Communication. I put that all in caps because that is absolutely key right now. And overly communicate is the key. It's like I say things 10,000 times. We put out the policy. We tell what the plan is. And we said, if you have any questions, please ask us. So what have we used? We used emails. We've used our unit websites, which has a weekly email blast feature. We have Facebook pages. We put up announcements. We put up events. We've used the Remind app. So we are multiple sourcing, trying to communicate with people on that. One thing we did in the throes of COVID, when back in that April timeframe, we were doing a lot of contests or activities on our Facebook pages or just by email. We did challenges. So our scouts watched Wreck-It Ralph at a Cub Scouts at a winter camping event. So I made a challenge of who could build the best Wreck-It Ralph thing out of Legos, and I'll get them 10 tickets to Hoffman's whenever that reopens. So we did stuff like that. I showed them virtual tours of like Machu Picchu, stuff they can do every day, just small little things, just to kind of engage and keep them going. And then in our Scoutmaster 75B, he did a contest showing all of these young pictures of us when we were scouts. And he went to the World Jamboree in Australia. The winner got a World Jamboree Australia patch. So that was pretty cool. The theme here is that one size does not fit all. So some families wanted to know what the online alternatives are. So we pushed the Merit Badge Academy that council had in the spring. The Twilight Camp, the pack, was very focused trying to push on that, but a lot of the kids were zoomed out. We pushed Stay Camp at the troop. We've also notified people of other BSA Council summer programs if they could not make Stay Camp or they want to do something else. Mohawk District, I know I see Greg's on here. They had their online Cub Scout adventures on this summer, so we pushed that to the units, to the Cub Scouts on the dens to say, hey, this is coming up. These are great Friday night things to do with the family. So we pushed that. And then right now we've shown the Friday night first year camper experience for Trails of First Class Skills. And then my last slide here. So ensuring safety, program upkeep. We revisit the policy continually. The saying I use is imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. If I find stuff that's cool out there, I just drop it right in. So if Drew wants to send ours out, you got feedback, we'll take it. So I have taken something the Capital District YMCA used. I thought that was right. I've used stuff in the Bethlehem Central School District. So we are just finding what works best, and we're constantly trying to improve this thing. What else are we doing? We're closely monitoring our budgets, identifying alternative revenue sources for the year. That's more of an issue for 75, given that they had a Sports Smart fundraiser. One of our key issues right now is finding an indoor meeting solution. The PAC meets at a school. We know we won't be in there. The troops meet at a church, and there's a process where we can meet in there. we're also challenging ourselves as leaders. As you know, we get a roadblock. Well, what do we pivot to next? How can we keep these scouts engaged and give them what they want to do? So we're listening very closely to the PLC and how can we accomplish that given any restrictions that are in place. We're also focused on recruiting. Many of the sports in Bethlehem have been canceled. And then, so we're letting families know there's a viable option to keep busy outside of school. But we're also focused on the fun stuff, hoping things turn for the better. So we planned the troop for 2021 Camp Paris. Both the PAC and the troops are looking at summer camps next summer. And then we have the troops are looking at high adventure as well next year. With that, I know Jeannie and Ryan are going to go. I have the next slide, my email, but I think there's Q&A at the end. So with that, I'll turn it back to Drew.
All right, as I switch it over, Rob, there's a question there from PAC 272. Why don't you take a gander at that? Then as I'm switching, maybe you want to take a chance at answering that. Yeah,
so full switch to Scout Book. So we had it, we kind of, our old system, we used that BSA paper form 34403. We did that, and then we had like Excel templates for our den leaders use that we got to our advancement chair saying, here's the adventures, the belt loops, or the pins every month. So we said, you know, council really wasn't doing the 34403 form anymore, and we found to get the arrow of lights crossed over, it would be best to do in the Scout Book. So what we did is we abandoned our forms. We did Zoom with all the den leaders. We just kind of did a Scout Book 101 and said, all right, let's go through this. And now we're all versed with it. And it's actually kind of cool. We know how to check off completion, that the den leader or the admin for each den says they're approved. And then our awards chair can just, in the report section, says needs purchasing report. And it's like a whole thing prints out. So we did an online purchase for our June PAC meeting. And then now we can go to the Scout store and just hand the sheet over. So it's a pretty cool feature. It did take a while to get us all up to speed on that. So we don't use the paper forms anymore. It's all Scout Book.
All right. And did you hit the second question there about the expectation of PAC participation?
Yeah. So I've asked the den leaders to reach out to every member rather than just blindly sending the emails out and hoping they're read. So let's communicate best to every family and see what their concerns are. I don't expect 100%, but you know, I've had a lot of people saying we're looking forward to this. And also, you know, the kids are going back to school, like the online in-person school started today in Bethlehem. So, and the sports are going. So I think there's a willingness to participate. So I know my den, I think, I would say, except one, they're all going to participate in their first den meeting this Thursday. So the younger ones, I'm less certain on. I think those are the ones that may want more time.
Hey, Rob, someone else had asked if you wouldn't mind sharing your Google form with them. Can they just email you for that?
Yeah, I could. They can email me and I can send them the Google link.
Cool.
Yeah. You could probably just drop that right in the chat if you want to.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Janine. And you're muted, so you may want to make sure you unmute yourself there. No audio coming from you. You had it earlier. All right, what's audible? Ryan, do you mind if you go up next, and then we'll come back to.
Hello, can you hear me? Great. Hi, I'm Ryan Fava. I'm the committee chairman for Cub Scout PAC 4044 in Round Lake. It's in the Mohawk District. And I was the former Cub Master. And go to the next slide. The first thing I want to mention, just make sure you keep in mind your local and state requirements. Each region, county, municipality may, and in some cases venue, may have different requirements. Make sure you adjust your plan to suit, comply with your charter organization requirements. I know ours, we cannot have any in-person meetings at the church where we're chartered, so we are resorting to everything outside. Fortunately, the weather is still good, but keep that in mind as you go forth with your plans. Stay familiar with the changes to requirements, both locally and at specific venues. Be ready with activity concepts that would work for more restrictive state. As schools reopen, things change. Let's be realistic. There might be more constraints coming in the wintertime.
Hello?
And if that's the case, you want to still be able to have a
Hello?
It's working now,
Okay.
Janine. So I'll mute you and then we'll kick you in back after Ryan. There we go.
So obviously, when all this hit back in March, none of us were really prepared for a fully virtual or remote program. We've seen that now, and have some ideas of how to do that, but keep that in mind as it may. You want to be able to pivot to that if it does come back on to that state. Next slide. Be considerate of specific family challenges. There may be some families that may have high-risk individuals that you might not be aware of. They certainly may want to still participate in some of the scouting activities, but may be uncomfortable with group activities, even if there are masks and social distancing being performed. Keep that in mind and provide a broad distribution of different kinds of meetings if possible, or activities that can accommodate those that may be more concerned. Also provide a mix of the in-person, group, virtual, and independent activities if possible. And keep in mind that you don't want to alienate certain families that may be under tighter restrictions for health reasons. And certainly have your den leaders ask parents what they're comfortable with before scheduling activities. There may be some good suggestions or potential locations that may make sense to hold safe activities. All right, next slide. So plan for flexibility. So what we did, we broke our entire program up into 5 different kinds of events, classified them at large events put on by the council or district, PAC events, that would be in-person group events, den activities. They could also be organized by the PAC, but functionally things work as a den. Family in-person events or activities, again, could be organized by the PAC, but the functional unit for that activity would be the family itself. And then individual activities would be the virtual ones, things that could be done at home or in a scout backyard, not necessarily associated with more than one individual. Some examples there, but basically that allows you the flexibility to adjust if restrictions become more relaxed. Hopefully they do, but you can also then flex back to those that may be more strict if things change. Prioritize those things you really have to do and come up with those plans. And then if things adjust, you have a flex plan where you don't have to do some of those events if the situations allow you to do something that's more valuable. Break them up into seasons. Think about the seasonal constraints that's there, how much daylight you may have. You can't do everything outside after the normal work hours in the wintertime because it's dark. Makes it hard to do that. Those things will be done on the weekends. But first and foremost, be flexible. Have a plan for each of the events, even if it's just a concept, and take it a few months in advance to actually formalize your plans. It's difficult to pull some of the more complicated things off at short notice. Next slide. So I'm going to give some examples of the different kinds of events that we've done. The individual items, the events that we did, a lot of that was done immediately following, well, in March, basically March through June. One was Cub Scout challenges. Very quickly, I put together a list, and this is just a subset of a whole bunch of things that scouts could do at home with materials that they have readily available. Some of them accomplish certain requirements for rank advancement or adventures. Some are just interesting, fun things to do. Some may be relevant. If you think back, how important it was to understand what a virus is, right? There's learning there. And then utilize YouTube and other sources for video content that's obviously age appropriate and suitable. Virtual den hikes, you can search online. You can find plenty of opportunities for national and state parks where you can actually go on a virtual tour of that park, or a museum or historical sites. Lots out there, and it's always one that you can set up and walk through with your pack. Virtual campfire, you can always set something up where everyone can sign in. Maybe one person actually has a campfire going as the lead, and everyone can come with jokes and songs and skits, tell some stories. When kids are isolated, it's a great thing for them to be able to see their peers and participate. Then online game night, I think Pictionary, bingo, trivia, those things are always cool to do. Kids can get engaged and have a lot of fun, really for the social aspect. But again, there are things you can weave in from advancement and adventure completion perspective there too. All right, next slide. So family events. So these are ones that you can set up that are intended to be executed by the family unit. So that's the group that is already together anyways, and would travel through or go through the event on their own. So treasure hunts, you could hide a treasure and give clues, map at a park. There's a digital option. There's an activity called letterboxing. If you're not familiar with it, on a later slide I do have an example of what that is, but you can set up a treasure hunt using for free. You can register on Atlas Quest. It's a website where you can create your own letterboxes, set up clues to go find them, and set your scouts off on an adventure and physically out in the parks and in the neighborhoods to find a treasure. In the Mohawk district, I came up with this idea and had help with other units to hide treasures around the district to make a puzzle hunt. I'll explain a little bit of those details on the next slide. Scavenger hunts. So again, you can make your own, create a story, have families venture out into a park looking for certain items. For the younger kids, they love this. Lots of fun, and it really engages the whole family as they're out and about looking for various items that you've hidden out in a forest. We have done 2 locally here, a gnome adventure and Festival of the Fae, whose concepts I have detailed on an upcoming slide as well. Self-directed trail hike or bike hike. So as I mentioned, some group families may not want to go in a large group on an activity, but if as a unit you come up with a suitable trail, detail where to go, when the group plans to depart, but you outline the whole trek and what you'll see and what to look for, and you can go anytime, whenever it's convenient. And I know with everything going on, it's been difficult to have everyone's schedules line up. That provides more flexibility for the families to venture out on their own and accomplish those requirements. What we're doing is monthly promo hikes, right? Every month we highlight, we're going to go see this waterfall. We're going to go, next month is going to be fall foliage. And just highlight that area, throw out some information around the where you're going to go, what you're going to see, and have a set time where you'll go as a group, but you publicize it and advertise it that if a family wants to go on their own, they certainly can. Avoid the local parks because you've done those already, right? They're not as interesting, but you go to ones that may be a little bit further away. It adds a little bit more interest and intrigue to the event. And drive-throughs. So this is another one. We actually did we went to the Wild Animal Park, which was pretty interesting. It's like Tiger King. But but it was out in Chittenango, and we actually did that accompanied with a camp out where we had a very similar family camp arrangement like Rob had described, where each family cooked and prepared their own food, but we utilized a Boy Scout camp that's out that way. That was pretty cool. You drive through the park and literally get attacked by buffalo along the trail. It's pretty intense. And then historical battlefield driving tour. You can do that in Saratoga Battlefield. I'm sure there's other ones around as well. You can drive through and have a historical story that goes along with the ride. And then certainly in the Adirondacks, there's lots of scenic driving tours as well. Next slide. So the puzzle hunt concept, it was rather complicated behind the scenes to set up, but in effect, I leveraged the QR code concept, which I strongly recommend to get used to figuring out how to use. Everyone's got a smartphone, and you can use that QR code. You can do it right now if you've got your phone, and it'll pull up the link to the site. Just pull up your camera, phone, and hold it up to the screen and follow the link. It'll appear on your phone. That was a nice contactless opportunity that in the early days of lockdown, you could use that to play videos, provide pathways to links online. But what we ended up doing for this letterbox, this puzzle hunt, is I made 40 different puzzle pieces electronically, cut them up, dumped them into different folders on a Google Drive, and made QR codes as a link for each one, and then basically hid those QR codes with the help of other packs around the district, and used Atlas Quest as the vehicle to deliver the clues to find all of those treasures. And this went on for 2.5, almost 3 months. And families would go out. It would really be a family-oriented activity and find these things. And this was back when everything was shut down, but you could still go to parks. And I had families call me and email me thanking me for having this activity because they were going crazy at home with their kids, and it gave them an opportunity to get out into nature and see some parks and into the woods to look for these things. And the kids were engaged, and really it was a rewarding experience for many that participated. And I have a link there for a free QR generator. Makes that barcode. Next slide. So for scavenger hunts, this was a neat idea we came up with. We wanted to have an activity that's out in a local park, but we wanted our scouts to actually, we wanted to have high engagement, but we also wanted to open that up as a potential recruiting opportunity, and this provided that opportunity. Basically, we came up with a story about myself, who discovered and befriended a whole troop of gnomes that lived in a local park. Kids loved it, and we bought a few dozen little gnomes, hid them throughout the forest along the trails, and made a little backstory for each one. So it was fun for the parents too, because there's hidden themes in some of the names and descriptions of the gnomes. So they really got a kick out of that too, and then push it out to the pack as well as all over the community pages and say, hey, the gnomes are going to be out this next weekend. Go check it out, and put some signs up for recruiting purposes. And it worked really well. My daughter there found a gnome she was pretty pumped about up in a tree. The next event, because this created a story, we can then cascade that into another one. We expanded, pulled in assistance from some other local packs, expanded now to have gargoyles, and there was a magical glowing portal that was coming out of the ground, and there was clues to find it, and it created a whole day's long experience for scouts to have an experience with their families, and all socially distant, traveling through local parks on trails. It's an easy thing to build upon and grow over the course of the year. And the kids had a great time, and it was really phenomenal for some of the younger scouts, the 5-year-old, 6-year-old age youth that are really the target for recruiting as well. So it definitely is beneficial for that perspective. All right, next page. So the Den event, some concepts here. Den group camp out. So the pack can camp at the same time, but each den has its own site and meal prep. Think patrol method, but as a pack. And you could certainly modify that to do family groups for food prep rather than the den, as Rob described, as we had also done. We actually have a event coming up this next weekend where it's a Webelow and AOL camp out at Rotary, and where the rest of the pack is going to come for a fishing event during the day, both all in cohorts of 10, and those groups of 10 will travel for the fishing activity, but the pack is doing a camp out for the older scouts to accomplish some of the more advanced requirements like cast iron shaft and others that otherwise would be difficult to do. A den group hike, pack can plan a hike, but dens can start at staggered times and keep to group size limits, which may exist in certain parks or venues. So that's another way to still have a hike, but have everyone involved. And then the dens can actually work on their own adventure requirements as well. Den meetings, so all of our den meetings now are held outside at local park pavilions or similar venues because we can't be indoors at our charter organization. So scouts and families can each occupy their own table because a lot of the pavilions have tables. That's good for social distancing, but you got to consider the seasonality that comes up, weather, daylight limitations. So that can't last all winter. It's going to become more difficult. So we're doing as many of the physical in-person activities and nature activities as we can these months, but when winter comes on strong, it's going to go to virtual. Next page. So some modified pack events. So we haven't done our Pinewood Derby yet, but what we're thinking about doing is streaming it. We can set the track up anywhere at this point, as long as there's a good broadband connection. Cars can be dropped off. We have a scheduled time for that in advance. We have a skeleton crew that would then run the cars, and we would stream it using multiple video feeds on a Zoom platform that would provide different angles if they're all streaming concurrently from the same location. Could be kind of cool because you can add in skits and songs and music and things like that normally would be difficult to do in a normal Pinewood Derby environment. So then another item that we did do, so at the end, since program year was interrupted, we never could do our end of year awards. We never could do our blue and gold, where we also have our AOL crossover events. We consolidated that into basically an awards hike that was held at the end of July. That kind of rolled all that together. And the way that was set up was by each family was to arrive at a designated den time slot, and we're queued at a start of a point in a hike by a clock that was marked out with, in our case, was 3 minutes intervals, and signposts were along the way. We made several dozen simple signposts with clips on the top, and we're using them for all of our outdoor events now that mark the directions where to go. We use QR codes for links to videos, had pictures of all the activities that we did in the prior year, really to remind all the families of the things that we've done. And when they reached the end of the hike, we had our award ceremony that I conducted for each scout as they arrived, and I had 3 minutes to do it because that was the tech time for the event. And we've got 60 kids. It took a while to get through them all, but I was able to do that, and each family was social distanced, and we had phenomenal participation in that. And going into it, I was worried because it was really our first big event after phase 4 opening, and by having it as well structured as it was, and with all the considerations taken into account for social distancing and mask wearing and COVID safety, we had 92% participation for the pack, and that was pretty phenomenal. So yeah, next slide. So I suggest getting geared up. Make a COVID kit that you use for your pack. Include items to support your activities, like the signpost, blank poster board, because you may want to write something down to direct people where to orchestrate the event. Have that available. Might come up on at short notice. Hand sanitizer, all the obvious things: wipes, thermometer, disposable masks, gloves. Have a big stack of blank COVID self-screen and release forms. Consider creating an online COVID form, much like Rob did. We did the same thing, and get familiar with creating and using the QR codes. Lots of things that you can do with those to make streamline communication and make it so that the families can get the information that you need and not actually have to have somebody standing there telling them what needs to be done. They can follow a little video at a station. We ended up coming up. We have 3 different kinds of COVID release forms. The first being a single person self-screen one we would do for a den activity or in-person pack event, and those typically for the folks in the unit that are familiar with the form, or if there's no available cell phone signal, like many of the trails are in the Adirondacks. And then second is a self-screen release list form. It's on paper. It would be used for large, a more public forum, or maybe when you have a lot of family members that aren't familiar with the practices and all the specific details of the requirements that are there. The symptoms, make it very easy. Got a little pictorial there of all the different symptoms. Has a QR code link to other policies that otherwise would be a small stack of paper, and provide that. And it's also great for when you have, say, a recruiting activity. Makes it very clear that what the requirements are, and you can you end up not with a huge stack of paper. But really, the third option is a digital form, and we also used a Google form for that. And again, if you incorporate that with a QR code, you have a QR code sign right at the beginning of your event, and it takes you to the digital release form. Parents can fill that out, and you're done, and everything's tracked and logged, and you don't have any paperwork to deal with. Next slide. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Happy to share. I have copies of all the plans and content that we've used in our past events. I've had PACs actually from the West Coast even reach out, and we've heard about some of the things that we've been able to do, and I've shared my plans with them. So happy to share with anyone who asks. There's lots of good ideas out there. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ryan. Janine, what do you think? We got some.
Can you hear me now?
Excellent.
Yes,
Go
yes,
ahead.
yes. So that was my spring. Transition into our video and teleconferencing equipment was not, we all had to figure out what the best platform to use was. How to best, I bought a webcam. I bought this headset with the microphone so that when I'm on my virtual meetings with my scouts, they could hear me. So I thought I worked that out. For some reason, it just glitched right there for me. Just not going to repeat what was already said because it was said great. Going back to what Rob said, one thing was communication. That has been a big, huge hurdle. Not being in person all the time, not being able to hand out reminders to people at meetings. My girls troop uses a band app We use that for posting things. I also will follow up with email because not everybody uses the band. So it's multiple forms of communicating our plans to our scouts and our families. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is with my scouts is how to get them engaged a little bit more. Because yes, they were all zoomed out. By the end of school, you could just see they were just done. So one of the things we did, one of the first in-person things I did with them was a little of the ILST training and individual leadership skills for troop. And we had it in a pavilion. Pavilions are going to be huge. If you can find a pavilion somewhere that you can have meetings, that at least is going to protect you from some rain. We're going to have a court of honor in a pavilion in the evening. We're going to have to be creative with some lighting because we start at 6:30. It's going to get darker. So we're going to have some issues with some lighting, but be creative. We're scouts, right? We can do that. One of the things I did with my girls was I brought the stuff to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because the first activity in the ILST is like a telephone game. Well, we can't sit next to each other and whisper in each other's ears. So I had to change that around. So that's what we're all thinking about is what creative ways can we do to be social distant to get the program out there, right? So I brought stuff to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and one at a time, they each showed me a step to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it was a lot of, no, don't do that. You know, put the jar the other way down and screw the top on this way. And a lot of interesting things like that. One thing I just did with my girls' troop last meeting was a non-verbal telephone game. So they stood in a line 6 feet apart, all facing the same direction. So the person in the back of the line, and then the next person will turn around and look at them, and they'll do some motions that when they're done with their motions, they touch the top of their head to signal that they're done with their motion. And then that person will turn around and show the next person, and on down the line, you see how the motions change, just like the telephone game message gets changed when we play that. So yeah, definitely hikes. We did go camping with the girls. We chose a middle of the week just because nobody else was there. It was great. They are cleaning that beautiful new bathroom. Joel Uline came down and cleaned it 3 times a day. So we liked using that bathroom, so we were able to do that. We went on a hike. We were gonna make it to the cliffs, but we somehow got turned around a little bit. It had to come back, but we still had a lot of fun. We did a lot of fire building skills that need to be for rank requirements. We built a little axe yard. You know, axe yard definitely is social distancing, right? Nobody can be in the axe yard but that one person with the hatchet. So things like that, you got to really think about a little bit more out of the box. What activities would you normally do in a meeting, and how can you do it differently, you know, with our masks on and being 6 feet apart. Good thing about being in a pavilion, if there's picnic tables, is if you have like one person at each picnic table, you're pretty much spaced out naturally because the picnic tables are at least 6 foot, right? So just to reiterate what we were talking about before, no carpooling, you know, parents have to drive their kids to the event themselves. We did the cooking with the foil packets, and we did the egg in the bag, where we boiled the Ziploc bag with a raw egg in it, and it cooks through, and then you have a nice egg to eat when nobody's touched it. So a lot of that, like, don't touch the food, have things that'll pour out, not reach into a bag, or have individual bags of chips, things like that people can use. So yeah, just, and the paper plates and utensils, oh my gosh, we're scouts, we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to reuse our items, but you know what? Safety and being clean is extremely important. So buy the paper plates, buy the paper cups, whatever you need to do, so that you can have your activities with your scouts, still run the program with some alterations, you know, be creative, think out of the box a little bit. Ask the scouts what they want to do. If they have ideas, share ideas with them. Yes, we did Zoom until the end of the school year. Over the summer, we said, we'll do our planning via Zoom. So we're still going to do our planning virtually. We will do board of reviews virtually, Scoutmaster conferences if we need to. As long as those parents are in the room with them, we can see them on camera. So we're following our YPT pretty good. My son is in a troop out here. We did a roadside cleanup where we just handed out because we have helmets and the high visibility vests. We handed out the helmets and the high vis vests, and they went on and did their roadside cleanup on their own time. So that's another thing that we like to do. So that's really all I had to talk about. Definitely my charter org is a VFW, and I know our PAC has used the school somewhat. So I've reached out to my PAC that if they wanted to come and split the evening with us at our VFW hall, they need to when it's more inclement weather and they can't be outside as much, that I'm willing to share the night also, share the hall. And, we can't be together at once, but you have an hour and I'll come the second hour with the boys to do that. So that's it.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. So now we'll get into the question and answer session. If there are individuals out there who do have questions, I just noticed that Doug asked one real quick in the chat section. Are there local Legion halls, Rotary clubs, Elks Lodge that could partner with Scouts? Yeah, absolutely. Actually, many of our charter partners are the organizations that you just listed off. And if they're not, they've always been very supportive of Scouting. If you do have an organization, if you're from a unit that's having trouble with meeting, having a place, I feel your pain. I'm the committee chair for PAC 7 in Schenectady. We're chartered by Zoller Elementary School, the City of Schenectady School District. We can't even meet in the parking lot. We can't even say hello in the parking lot. So, we've gone to den meetings and parks and stuff and PAC meetings virtually. So if you are somebody who's having a rough go of it, of trying to find out a location, please reach out to your district executive. They know, or they can get a hold of some partnerships. They can help you reach out to some local organizations. They can help make phone calls to local opportunities that maybe we can get you a meeting or so. But please reach out to them and ask for some help. You're not the only one. There are a lot of units who are in the same boat as you. And, we're trying to help each one of them that comes to us. It's just let us know that you're having that difficulty. But yeah, some of those locations that you mentioned there, Doug, are places that we are reaching out to try and find either temporary or not. We're reaching out to other places like Arab meeting and seeing if we could, if a troop is meeting there, maybe we can do an alternative night, and if the organization's willing to let us. So we're trying to get creative in how we help units meet. Even if it's just a little bit.
Drew, I would just say that you might want to start that sooner than later, because I know with my VFW hall, I was asked if I could change my night because another group wanted to come in. So there are also other groups that are using the schools or looking out for other venues to use too. So I would say sooner.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. I think we've gone through and answered everything in the chat at this point. I did take care of that camping youth protection one. Does anybody else, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to talk. If anybody has a best practice that they would like to share with the group that think somebody could have the benefit from, or just any generalized questions for this group or for Stephen or I, we're more than willing to talk. If not, I'll say goodnight. If all the schools close again, is there an expectation that we have to go all virtual? If our charter organization meeting allows in person, following all guidelines. I think the key there is the following all guidelines. So it's not necessarily what the schools do is what we do, it's what the state will dictate to us. So if the governor and the health department says no more group meetings, then we're kind of in trouble there. As long as we stay in these later phases and are able to find the locations, I think regardless of what the schools do, we're okay as long as the state says we are. So I think we'd still be okay. We just have to watch it. If we go down to, that pause again, oh God, hopefully we don't have to do that, or phase 1 or 2, then that would be an issue for us meeting or operating as Scouts. So that's going to be the key. Yeah, no problem, Kevin. Anything else? Anyone else want to ask a question or pipe in with any good practices or thoughts? We have a lot of good faces on here. Some units that I know are doing a great job at this, but we didn't have any opportunities to include them. So if they want to speak up, they're more than welcome to.
Yeah, I just have a comment. This is Rob DeCandia from Troop 58 in Delmar. We were out at Rotary last weekend, or this weekend, past weekend, and I think 25 on a site might be a lot of scouts and a lot of people on some of those sites. We were in Shindaku, and even though the fire area is big, to get everybody, we had 12 people, and we seemed kind of cramped for individual tents and just kind of keeping distant. So I think doubling the number on the site would make it almost impossible to pull off.
All right. You were in Shindaku, you said?
Yeah.
All right. Stephen or I can follow up with Joel and Brian and see if there's a better opportunity for us to be using a different site, or maybe we need to adjust that. But I do appreciate you bringing that forward. I wasn't aware. So we could definitely look into that.
My name's Ted Sargent. I'm with Troop 56 out in Burnt Hills. We had a couple of a bunch of trips this summer, very similar to what the other leaders were saying, where we did the COVID check sheets for about 5 days or so before we went on the trip. And then 3 times a day, I was the COVID guy, so I checked everybody's temperatures, logged everything, checked for symptoms. And it was all individuals, just like you guys were saying with the camping. We haven't allowed anybody to stay in anybody else's tent. It's all been individual. Most of the trips, the 50-mile canoe trip we took up to Cranberry Lake, we were using a lot of the remote campsites. So we broke into 2 groups with the leaders that had ILS training and first aid training, broke into 2 groups of 8 and 6. Again, stayed separate, everything individual. Then, we would canoe together, but canoeing is kind of a kind of keeps you at a distance anyway, so that worked out well. Another trip we actually just took about 2 weeks ago now, we went to 13th Lake, took over with our girls unit, our linked girls unit came with us as well. We took over 3 sites and then hiked Peaked Mountain with a canoe/hike. Again, kind of broken, very, very similar to what the other leaders were saying, broke into family units so that everybody had, a parent and a son or a daughter, so that we gave them where we were located out on the lake with a map. They came out to us and then set up camp and then went out. Again, COVID checks every day to make sure everybody was good. But again, keeping separate and trying to provide a program has been something we've been pushing for. Also, we did the same thing with everybody else with going completely virtual in the spring. But when the restrictions started to lighten up, our Scoutmaster has access to his family field. So we were able to put together a program that carried every Tuesday night throughout the entire summer with the Scouts staying socially distanced, all masked up, and providing the program that would have provided in the springtime, but providing it all summer long with everybody's vacations and everything pretty much canceled. It was a great opportunity for us to keep a program going and keeping the Scouts active, and that helped a lot. We did a really good job with that this summer. So again, keeping to the field, keeping socially distant, and keeping outside. We have the same issue as with everybody else. When it starts to get colder, we're going to have a problem. This month's theme with the troop is outdoor lashing skills. So actually, we've got the older Scouts tomorrow night at our meeting lashing together poles with LED lights to try to keep the field going. As it gets darker, we can at least still meet outside. But as soon as the weather goes poor, we're going to have to start meeting virtually again.
No, Ted, thanks so much for that. Yeah, absolutely. Some great points there. I appreciate that. Dave Hoffman mentioned that we're providing each Scout a tent for their use. They would keep it assigned tent for a year. After 4 years, the tent is theirs. That's a great program. And also, the cleaning is a huge point of that. And I think that's something to give consideration to. Also, is maybe got to take care of the sterilization of the tents as well. Each group has a different color tent, girls with boys, adult. No, that's fantastic. Good job. That's great. Yeah, I think the important thing to remember is that we can go out and scout. We can do these things. It just takes us a minute as a committee to pause and think about the alterations we have to make to the everyday muscle memory things that we're doing in scouting. And if we take that moment to take a look at, you know, why do we do this? How can we make it different? How do we adjust it so the kids can have a good time? I think it's important that we take advantage of the nice fall weather and get out and go do something. Especially, you know, for these kids who just may not have been able to do stuff in the spring. It's important for us to go out and do stuff. So I absolutely applaud all of you for what you're doing. In my previous survey before, not one of you said your unit was not planning on doing anything. 100% of you were still working out your plans, or you were planning on doing something, which I think says a lot. And I appreciate that effort, and I know the kids do, and everybody else does, the parents that were involved in the program. This is not as easy as it usually is, and it's not usually easy either. So I understand there are some challenges that have been thrown in front of our feet, and we have to figure out how to get around them. So I appreciate the efforts that you're putting out there. Ryan threw down, get in touch with another Cub Scout pack somewhere else in the country. You can make a neat combined virtual pack meeting. It's a great idea, absolutely. Use your resources in your communities, whether it's a small park, it's a farmer's field, or whatever you can do to just get outside and hold a meeting or an activity on a weekend or so. I threw out another poll real quick. 31 of you have responded to it so far, just to kind of give us a little feedback on tonight's meeting. If you haven't done so yet, please take care of that. Working with a great supplier for the tents, I assume that's for Dave, the tents? Shake your head yes or no? Yeah. So for the tents there, he threw out his email there if anybody wants to get in touch for him in regards to a supplier for tents, if your troop is in the market or your pack is. And unless there's anything else from anybody, I did go a little bit over an hour, but I think it was well worth it. So I appreciate your time. Again, you all had my email, commissioner@trcscouting.org. I can get you in touch with anybody who was in the panel, with Dave, with Stephen, with any of your DEs if you have a question. So please feel free to reach out to me. We did record this, and I do have the presentations that maybe we can throw up on our website on the COVID page or offshoot of that. I'll get permissions from Rob and Ryan and such to do that. And then as long as I get their okays, then we can provide this access to you for some of these PowerPoints. But other than that, everyone have a great night. I appreciate your time, and keep on scouting. I'll see you out there.